Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Voices of CFMA, Construction Financial Management Association's podcast featuring conversations with industry leaders, sponsored by Old Republic Surety. I'm your host, Sal Marino, CFMA's Director of Communications and an Assistant Editor for CFMA Building Profits magazine. This month, I am thrilled to be joined by Caryl Coronis, CFMA's 2024-25 Chair. Now, Caryl, I'm sure most people listening will know you as the chair, but why don't you tell everyone what you do for your day job?
Okay, that's an interesting question. I am a longtime CFO and currently working for MC2 Civil. We're a heavy civil company in Houston, Texas. And we do a lot of paving as well as structures, bridges, all kinds of things. We're the people that people say really some bad things when they encounter traffic in Houston because things are closed down. So
Right.
that's us.
That's great. So how did you get involved with CFMA? How did it start?
Well, originally I worked for a very large commercial landscape company, and actually we had reached the threshold where we had to do percentage of completion accounting, and I was unfamiliar with that. And my surety bond agent said, "I have just the place for you to get the right education, CFMA." So he introduced me to CFMA. He took me to my very first chapter meeting, and I got to know everybody there. Was so excited to know that people would be the resources that I needed, being very new in this particular arena. And I've never looked back.
That's great. And how has it changed since joining? How has it changed how you face challenges or struggles at work?
I would say that the biggest thing is that CFMA has all of the resources that are needed. It's just so easy when something comes up that I'm not familiar with, to be able to reach out to those within CFMA, to be able to listen to everything that is on the web. I can go in and listen to webinars that are recorded. I can go to the Connection Cafe. I can even take a course if it's something I really need. And I can just pick up the phone and call another CFMA member. So I can't tell you what a valuable resource it's been to me. I've even looked up a few things in the book at times that I needed to know. And I'll tell you, during COVID, I actually don't know what I would have done or what our company would have done without the resources that CFMA had to offer. So it's been very valuable to me. I honestly don't know what I would have done without it.
Yeah, one of the things that I hear from members a lot was that, especially during COVID, you can spend all the time on Google and searching for answers, but the Connection Cafe allowed them to easily connect with other members who are going through the same things that they were going through. And it sort of lent to, I think, a camaraderie of people who, you know, things were happening so quickly that they didn't know where to turn so they could turn to other people who were going through the same things that they were going through.
Yes, and it was really interesting in that particular case of COVID is that things were changing so rapidly. So
Right.
even if you were Googling what you Googled yesterday may not be the case today. And also, since everything was untested, it was like, okay, I know it says this, but what am I really going to do? And what are the ramifications of that going to be down the road? So it was
Right.
really, really helpful.
Yeah, it was a little bit like the Wild West for a while out there, which
Yeah.
so with labor costs and inflation, how can heavy civil or heavy highway companies better manage their equipment costs, do you think?
Well, I would say that with labor costs and inflation skyrocketing, not to mention the general labor shortage that we all have, if you can even find people to work for you, equipment management is even more important. Uh, Downtime really affects the utilization of labor. When equipment is down, that really does increase your labor, and it also increases your inefficiencies. And
Right.
so you definitely want to be able to manage your equipment and manage it well. And it will help, I think, in the labor shortage, and it'll help also in a lot of different ways in terms of your overall profits, in terms of your operations, your efficiency, and also your cash flow. So it will have a lot of effects on all of those things. And with the inflation, as you mentioned, and the labor shortage, we need all the help we can get.
So, why do you think heavy civil or heavy highway companies should track these metrics like financial cost, utilization, safety? What's the benefit there?
So I would say, first of all, that it's important to even companies that are not in heavy highway or heavy civil.
Okay.
It's important to those companies that just have maybe a larger fleet. Because it will make such a difference to you. I know I recently encountered a company that does installation and has large cranes and things like that. They can also really, really take advantage of some of the things that equipment management really brings. So I would say when you're looking at those types of metrics that you're wanting to think about more, it's really important to zero in on those things that may be important to you and your company, depending on the size of your company and depending on the size of your fleet. You may be able to utilize more or less and in more detail or less detail some of these things. The utilization metrics are really helpful because they understand how well the business is putting fleet assets into action.
Mhm.
So you definitely want to know. I mean, you might have these very expensive cranes that are sitting out on your yard. You want to know, are you utilizing those? And we make a lot of estimates and assumptions based on how often and how much we're going to utilize the pieces of equipment. So knowing that is very helpful. Also, knowing your reliability and those reliability metrics can be very helpful because you want to know what is the downtime on your equipment. When that equipment is down, as we talked about, there are a lot of ramifications around that, and you want to be able to measure that. I know sometimes you have an inkling about it, you have a feeling about it, but really being able to rely on some metrics can be really important. And I think the planning and scheduling metrics look at something else for you. They help to tell you if your preventive maintenance is on schedule, if you're getting your things in and out when they do have an incident that actually requires repair. So knowing how that's going is very important. And your inventory metric will help you to indicate if you have too much money tied up in your equipment parts inventory. So I could go on and on about this, as you hear, because when I had my first job in construction, which was a landscape company, believe it or not, I mean, they're smaller pieces of equipment,
Mhm.
but we were able really to go in and see by making a few changes that it really had a great effect on the bottom line and on schedules and everything else that was going on. So it definitely has a trickle down effect, and I would definitely recommend that people look at this, examine it. It sometimes doesn't even take a very major thing happening or a major study or a major change. Sometimes just smaller changes within fleet management can have a big impact.
And speaking of tools, is this where the heavy equipment comparator might come in?
Oh, definitely, definitely, and I can tell you, it's very interesting. I was so glad that I was asked to be a part of this project, CFMA's joint project with A&P, the Association of Equipment Managers. Um, it really been helpful to me to even go farther into the equipment management realm. One thing that it does is it really has gone in to standardize some of the metrics to help us calculate the metrics and also to develop industry standards to measure yourself against those that are like you within the industry. So I know a lot of times, you may look online and see how do you calculate this metric, but then you want to know what does this really mean and
Right,
what is the average of this?
right.
And that's where the heavy equipment comparator really comes in. And I'm really happy that right now it's opening up again for the submission of metrics. And I would encourage everyone just to go in, take a look, even if you can go in and submit the financial related metrics and maybe not some of the others because you don't have a system in place yet to measure those. It can still be very helpful. And I think construction financial professionals are very interested in a lot of the financial metrics in particular.
Right. Was there anything like this before, or is this the first of its kind, really?
This is the first of its kind when it comes to construction type equipment. I mean, there are a lot of studies that are out there around some of the KPIs on equipment, but they tend to concentrate more on the manufacturing realm because those are huge pieces of equipment. So this is really it's new and it's good, and we really hope to increase the number of data sets in our product and go from there. And I know I just called it a product, but it's more than that. It's a study. It's a way to get from here to there. It's a way to learn a lot about equipment if you don't know anything, which some construction financial managers have not had the opportunity yet to really dive into. So I think it's a good resource all around.
That's great. And for those of you who are listening and would like to check out the heavy equipment comparator, we will link it in the notes for this podcast, or you can go to cfma.org/HEC. So I'm going to switch it up a little bit, Carol. We have CFMA's annual conference and exhibition coming up this week, and I know you're very busy and you probably don't get a lot of downtime, but when you do get some downtime, what does that look like? What do you do to relax?
Well, that's very interesting, and I'm with you. I cannot believe the conference is here. I mean,
I
it
know.
looks so far out for such a long period of time, but it is here, and I'm looking forward to it a lot. I'm looking forward to being able to meet and talk with a lot of people that some of them I only get to see on Zoom, but others I get to have phone calls with or just see their comments. So looking
Right.
forward to making a lot of good connections at conference. But talking about the downtime, what I really love to do, I think my favorite thing to do is spending time in nature and just walking or hiking. I also like to listen to music a lot. So, and I love to go to live theater, which is
Very
it's
nice.
very available here in Houston. That's one of the things that I love about the city. I'll tell you an interesting fact is that we are second only to New York City in terms of live theater seating. And so it's available here and I take advantage of it. Um, I like to declutter my mind with some of these things. And one of the best ways to do that is to spend time with my grandchildren. So when I can combine one or two or three of these things all together, that's what makes it really, really nice.
Very nice. And you are a Pearl Jam fan, correct?
Yes, for sure.
So have you brought any grandchildren to Pearl Jam concerts yet?
I'll tell you that I can tell you a funny story is that two of my grandchildren are named after bands. One of them's name is Floyd, so he's named after
Very
Pink
nice.
Floyd. My son-in-law is a fan, and then my granddaughter, one of my granddaughters, is named Pearl after Pearl Jam.
Very
So,
nice.
so those are just a few little stories. But so they listen to the music. They have not been to a concert yet. So, but that's definitely in their future. So looking forward to sharing that with them. They do like to listen to music, and we take every opportunity to combine my love of music with spending time with them.
That's so great. So keeping on the subject of music, I have to ask, Beyonce or Taylor Swift?
Oh, that's that's funny. Being from Houston, if I had to choose between the two, I would choose Beyonce. As we just talked about, that's not really my preference of music.
Right.
Yeah, I really prefer alternative rock. I love Pearl Jam. I love Tom Petty, and also Chris Cornell. I really tend to dial back into that music, but I love all kinds. I love some country too, being in Houston again. I have a lot of exposure to that. And also show tunes. One of the reasons I like live theater now might be that my mother constantly played show tunes on our big record player with the vinyl records. She would be playing them all the time, and so I definitely developed a love for those.
Oh, that's great. Did she like going to live shows as well?
Well, she didn't really have the opportunity so much, but she would just buy the records
Just
and
played
play
them?
them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we would act out and of course sing on the mic and everything too. So it was a great experience for us kids. Music is great. It brings up so much of emotion in all of us. And I think it takes us back to those times when we listened to it. So
It really is great. I feel like I could talk music for hours, but let's move on to advice. Do you have a piece of advice that you've received over the years that you've held on to that's particularly close to your heart, maybe?
Well, it's really funny because one of the pieces of advice that I got from my first mentor for my very first job so many years ago was to learn to drink my coffee black.
Really?
Yes, yes. So she told me that. She said, honey, and I was about 16. She said, this is one piece of advice I want to give you, and it will just add so many minutes to your life because you won't have to be worrying about milk, about creamer, and it'll save you a few calories
Right.
along the
Yeah.
way. So I learned to drink coffee black. I didn't like it at first, but hey, it's just a habit that I've hung on to.
Nice. That's
So,
great.
yeah, I know that's a little one, but I think just all in all, overall, that one of the best pieces of advice that I received is that relationships are something that you can't rush. Being in business and being a construction financial professional, I tend to, want to get things done quickly and efficiently. But with relationships, I know you can't do that. So that was one of the very best pieces of advice that I got, that with people, in order to build the trust and camaraderie, you have to spend the time together. And CFMA really offers a lot of those opportunities through the things that we actually grasp and do together. And so that's actually how I've created and maintained quite a few of my great relationships. And it applies, I think, with coworkers. It applies with children and grandchildren as well. So, a great piece of advice to remember that with people, fast is slow and slow is fast. So, I love
That's
that piece of
yeah.
advice.
That's great. That's great. Well, listen, Carol, I don't want to keep you too long, but is there anything else you'd like to say before we sign off on Voices of CFMA?
Well, I know that the people who are listening to this initially will probably hear this before the conference. If so, I just want to say looking forward to seeing you all at the conference and giving you a great Texas welcome to our Texas conference with the Texas chair. And so just really looking forward to seeing and making connections with a lot of CFMA people there.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
It's always a pleasure, Sal. Thank you so much.
And thank you all for listening to another episode of Voices of CFMA, sponsored by Old Republic Surety. If you're going to be in Grapevine, Texas this week, make sure to stop by and say hello. I will have many cameras on my person taking pictures throughout the conference. And if you enjoyed this podcast, don't forget to like and subscribe and share it on social media. And if you're interested in learning more about the Construction Financial Management Association, check out cfma.org. Once again, I'm your host, Sal Marino, and I will see everyone back here next month. Thanks.